exactly 5 minutes to 1 p.m. right here on Kirk TV, whereby right now you're having us live from our studios. With me, they've just been joined by some of the guests that we are going to just unpack some of the things that are affecting this country and the nation, you know, as we are heading to the the voting session that is planned to happen on the 9th of August, that is Tuesday. We are actually having not more than 15 days. If I just count very well, it's actually it's almost 10 days, yeah? So on my right side, I am joined by Senator candidates for Embu County, Madam Frida Karani. It's Doctor actually, Dr. Frida Karani. And on the far end is Christopher Wambua, a youth representative, Mathare area. Then on the other side, at the farthest point of it all, is none other but Grace Kamau, the coordinator of Survivors of Sexual Violence in Kenya network. That works with Wango Kanja Foundation, if I'm not wrong. Yes, those are the guests or the panelists that I'm going to have today. Hao ndio wale ambao nitaweza kuwa niko nao siku ya leo. Right now, from now 1 p.m. to till it's around 2:30 p.m. So it will be like 1 hour, 1.5 hours of candid conversation, talking about peaceful elections, you know, and all that awaits us as voters in the polling booths. Well, just remind you, this is the Kirk TV Partnership Week, whereby we are planning, and we have a very, very, very special plan for you as a viewer, because Kirk TV is right now 2 years and 7 months old, and we have been here because of you. It's your support that we have been here. So this week we've decided to partner with you and also make sure that we become part and parcel of your day-to-day lives. So now, guys, my guests in studio, thank you so much for joining. Kidogo sasa nataka tuingie katika swala letu la siku ya leo. Nataka tuchanganye ndimi kidogo kwa sababu we'll be also talking to vijana. I want to know, we are heading to the general elections which are supposed to happen in the 9th of August. I want to pose a very general question to each and every one of you. We'll start with you, Dr. Frida Karani.
Yes.
What's your view on the elections? How do you expect the elections to be?
So far, so good. And I expect the elections to be very peaceful and to be very effective, fair and free and democratic.
All right.
I would want to say that unlike in some instances in the past, where we've seen a few days to election or a few months to election, beats and pockets of violence, this year it's been different. What is also very different this year that makes me have a lot of expectations is that a lot of agencies have come up and are propagating peace. We are having peace dialogues. We are having the media houses really propagating peace. We are having youth and women organizing themselves, having peace walks. There's a lot of peace message out there.
Yeah.
So for me, in the list, I would expect these elections to be very peaceful. And the other thing is that I would expect most of the principals, if not all, to also be propagators of peace. Before we went to the primaries, you saw the parties also being very keen on disciplinary measures to members of their parties who propagated violence.
Right.
So for me, what I'm really seeing that is very exceptional and very exciting about this election is really the presence of peace, and peace is in Kenyans' heart and mouth. Every day is peace, peace and peace.
All right.
Yes.
Bwana Christopher.
Yes, sir.
Wewe ni kiongozi wa wanarika kutoka eneo la Mathare. Mathare is normally ni spotlight ya violence mostly when it comes to elections. Watu wanavurugana kidogo pale. Sijui kwa mtazamo wako, in these elections, how do you view them? Unatarajia nini?
Hii election inakuja, tunaomba sisi kama vijana, unajua tunatumikanga sana. Mostly Mathare ikuwe ya amani. Hatutaki vijana wanapatiwa 200 ama 300 wakuja kufuruka vijana. Unajua ukipatia kijana 200 ama 300 arusha mawe, hatarusha. Kwa sababu gani? Juu sisi wengi wetu hawana kazi. Wamekaa idle. So kuja kumbatia 200, atakimbia, atakumbua my competitor, shika 200, zuie ule senator asipite hapa. Hamutapita. So chenye tunaomba vijana wenye wanasimama viti waache kututumia vibaya. Wasichukue advantage yetu juu hatuna kazi. Hatupate yange 200 ama 300. Hiyo tumekataa. Hii election tunataka amani. Hatutaki vita.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a very direct answer from one only youth representative from Mathare area, and of course Mathare is normally a spotlight of violence when it comes to general elections. Now we go to you, Grace Kamau. You are a survivor of sexual violence incidences that have happened in the country and mostly related to these general elections. I don't know, how do you view these elections?
Previously, in 2007-2008, KHRC recorded 201 cases of sexual violence in 11 counties. That was after the 2007 elections. And ukiangalia, the people who get to be affected most happen to be the women and children, and sana ni sexual. For me, I'm looking forward to peaceful elections, despite that there are some areas which have been marked as hotspot. For me, just like Dr. said, I will urge our leaders to propagate more of peace, because there will always be lives after election. So for me, I'm just looking forward for a very peaceful election.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Frida.
Yes.
It has been seen, and it's all over in this it's in the public domain, that the youth, like Bwana Christopher said, the youth have been used to cause violence and chaos in these elections. I mean, what is this that makes them get used to cause chaos and violence? What's the reason?
I think for me, from where I sit, we are working with a youth in Kenya that is very disappointed. And disappointed because when you create expectations in the young people, when you give hope to the young people and to the children, and then ultimately they don't get it, they resort to some level of desperation, to some level of depression, and if they don't go the ultimate way or the bad way of taking their life, they resort to violence. And I'm saying this is because if you look at even the youth that are used to throw stones, most of them are youths who've been up to Form 4, they've been to college, they went to university, they don't have employment. And then kuna sasa wengine tuwa mtaa, they just join together and they become one big group of a mob. So for me, what has really failed our young people is wanasoma, they are being promised employment mostly by these politicians. They are being promised contracts, but they are not forthcoming. So our youth are at a point mali wamesema enough is enough. We can do whatever it is. If you ask some of them what they do with the 200, 300, they can't account for it. He's here, he can confirm. They really don't account for it. And before I go to the next point that I want to highlight is I want to tell these youth, because I'm also Senate candidate for Embu County.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm using the youth in a very different way. I want to encourage the youth of Kenya and tell them, if that politician gives you that 200, if you're hungry, eat, but don't go to throw stones. Hata kama nitawapea 200, msiporusha mawe, I won't do anything. I can't do anything.
Yeah.
But in the first instance, if you can avoid picking that 200, that 100, just don't pick. Lakini msiende kurusha mawe, there is nothing you will do.
Yeah.
Like you give the money and then you pale Mathare murusha mawe, then you don't show up. I'll actually be surprised and ashamed. And what will instill ethics in me is the fear that that group which I thought is my supporter is like I've lost their votes and their confidence.
Sure.
So for me, that is where the issues of the youth come up. However, in Embu, what we have done and what is really working, we have a students organization. It's called Embu County Comrades Students Organization. And these are students in universities and colleges and alumni who've come together, and they are pushing different agendas. They are pushing peer counseling among themselves. They have a radio station. They do online counseling for each other. They produce magazines. They hold AGMs. They connect themselves with the politicians. They are looking for the national youth council, lakini wakiwa pamoja. So I think we are also moving to an era where the youth watatuambia sasa, nyinyi na pesa zenyu na mawe zenyu kaeni kando, as we have chosen to go this way, and they are getting the attention that they require.
Madam Grace.
Yes.
I don't know whether you agree to what Dr. Frida is saying. I just want to know from you, do you think that the youth are the most vulnerable people when it comes to causing chaos and violence in these elections?
Definitely they are the most vulnerable because they happen to be the one to be used. But I'm also going to direct my anger towards the politicians, because who gets to fund these groups? It is the politicians themselves. And you'll find that probably a certain group of youth, like a certain MC or MP is giving us money to go and maybe heckle the opposing candidate. And there's also the fear of I've seen this happen in informal settlements where a mobilizer is given a certain amount of money to give to the youth to do a certain thing. If that does not happen, then probably the politician or the youth will go against the mobilizer. So if I'm a mobilizer and I'm given a certain amount of money to go and give the youth, for me to save my life, I'll have to share it out. So it will be just a matter of if they, however they will use it, I as the mobilizer am not involved. But I'll still blame our politicians. Why are we funding these groups? Because these groups are the same groups that they turn even against the community. Now this is where you find that they go as far as being rogue to a point where they're even sexually violating the members of the community, which most of them happen to be women and children. So yes, the youth happen to be used a lot, but I'll still put the blame on the politicians. Because if a youth cannot find a way of justifying an amount of money that he or she was given to do something, as Dr. said, I as the politician will have nothing to do with it. Yes, so I'll still blame the politicians for funding these groups. Yeah.
Bona Christopher, Grace is putting a blame on politicians, and that's true. You know, politicians are said to fund these youth by giving them freebies, t-shirts, money, you know, and some sorts of branded things, just in the name of go and heckle someone else. Sijui kwa upande wako wewe kama kiongozi wa vijana, what do you think that it's the youth, what do you think that the youth should do? Like tunafaa tu tunakubali tu tukiletewa na madam na daktari hapa kwa sababu she's a politician, akituletea tunakataa, ama tutafanya namna gani bwana?
Kitu cha kwanza mimi naongelelea Mathare. Shida ya Mathare, ya vijana wa Mathare ni ukosefu wa kazi. Unanielewa? So mimi nikikuwa kwa kazi ama kijana mwingine uniletea utanipatia 200 nikiwa wapi? Si ndakuwa kwa kazi. So mheshimiwa hatapata time ya kunimeet juu mimi niko kazi. Utakuja kwangu wapi? Unajua in fact mheshimiwa hawezi kuja kwangu kwa nyumba aniambie shika 200 ama shika 10,000 ukagawia vijana. Nitaenda kugawia vijana wa gani na watu wako kazi? So the problem of people from youths from Mathare ni ukosefu wa kazi,
and that beats generally mpaka kwa hawa na rika wengine
wote. Because when I talk about Mathare, I'm talking about the whole country. Because Mathare iko na every tribe. We have 42 tribes in Mathare. So it's like Kenya. You see? So ni dominant with all the tribes in Mathare. So shida ya Mathare nakwambia ni ukosefu wa kazi. Sisi wote tukipata kazi, hautaona kijana anapewa 200 akarusha mawe. You not get that. Huyo atanikuta kwa nyumba anipe 200, already niko huku. Sasa kwa mfano sasa hivi si ndio kiongozi wa vijana? Haizi tafuta kijana mwingine. Juu nimeenda kazi hata niona. Hata nitoa wapi? So ni vizuri hao mapolitician wakiingia mostly wakitaka hii vita iishe Mathare, vijana wa Mathare wapate kazi. Okay, nashukuru mheshimiwa rais. Hii kazi mtaani iko Huruma, iko Mathare constituency tumepatiwa. So vijana wengi kwa mfano ni Huruma tuko 13,000 youths. So unajua tunapata after 9 days tunapata pesa. So unajua vijana wako engaged mpaka wakati wa election. Most of us ni vijana, so hatutapata wakati wa kuenda kurusha mawe. Ndio maana unasikia saa hii Mathare hakuna mfurutano, tutembee huko kwa na amani. So hiyo ndio tunataka. So tunashukuru mheshimiwa rais mwenye ataingia kama vijana aendeleze hiyo, because kama wa Huruma tunaweza pata kazi watu 1300. Sasa tunafanya tuweze ajiriwa sisi wote kwa serikali. So it is good hiyo kazi mtaani iendelee. Ikiendelea utasikia vita Huruma ama Mathare. Most because ukienda Mathare mahali kuna kuanga na vita, Kiamaiko hakuna ward. vita inakuanga Huruma ward na Mabatini. Only two wards. Mahali unaona kuna tribes mingi, vita inakuanga pale. Mlango hakunanga sana. Ukikuja Mabatini sasa, hapo ndio tribes mingi ziko tu hapo. Vita iko hapo. Kuja Ngei it's only ni dominant with the two tribes. So hapo hakuna vita. Kuja Huruma sasa, hapo ndio vita inakuanga hapo. Juu ndio gateway ya kuingia from Mathare area 1 unaingilia wapi? Huruma. So the other tribe wakikuja, wakitoka mwana nini? Mathare North area 1 wanakuja Huruma. Ndio maana unaona kuna vita. So sisi hata ukiangalia 6 wards, mahali tumepata the biggest share ya kazi mtaani ni Huruma ward. Juu ya hiyo vita. So vijana tukipata kazi, utaona mtu akipewa 200 arusha mawe. Yeah.
Well, candid conversation right here, going on right here with my 3 pundits. That is Dr. Frida Karani, a human rights advocate, and of course a Senate candidate for Embu County, Christopher Wambua, a representative, a youth representative, Mathare area, and of course Grace Kamau, who actually has a story to tell. Now, Grace Kamau, whatever Christopher has put it in, it's actually in bits, and it's actually very true. It sounds so true, and that's what many youths are going through. Well, you have an experience with the people from the informal settlement and some of the things that they face, or they rather face after the elections due to violence and chaos. Of course, you're a survivor of sexual violence, right? So I don't know, what's your experience with that, with the issue of violence in the country after elections?
With the issue of violence in the country, it has always been kuna ule uoga, the tension that comes within the community members. Like right now, I'll give you an example. In Mukuru, just like venye amesema, in Mathare there are different ethnic groups. So you'll find that when violence occurs, violence does not know which group you belong to. All of us are affected. As I stated earlier, it is women and children who happen to be more affected. And you will find that even these youth who are used by these so-called politicians, it is actually the male youth that are used. Because hautambia msichana kama Grace aende arushe mawe. Wala akianza kukimbia, mimi sina ile nguvu. And when violence erupts, someone else will tend to take advantage ya hiyo violence against me. Now imagine a person like, out of the population of 50 million Kenyans, I, Grace, feeling the tension of violence after election. What about others who are affected? And as we are speaking right now, we do have an economic crisis. Life imekuwa very, very expensive. Na hapo ndipo unapata even domestic violence inaanza kwa nyumba. So put it in this scenario, a young man and a young woman wameamua kukaa pamoja, and these two hawana kazi, they are living from hand to mouth. The man amepewa 200 and akavuruge another candidate. Ameenda amemvuruga. Maybe vitu zimehappen tu huko. Huyo ameenda kashikwa na depression zake, amerudi kwa nyumba. What will happen? Now atago against the woman mwenye ako kwa nyumba, mwenye aliacha kwa nyumba. So tunaongea na the fact that huyu mama pia yeye hana kazi, alikuwa anategemea mzee. Now that is where now wrangles erupt. From that is where unapata ina lead hadi to homicide. You all of a sudden, I remember there was a time in a TV station, it was like the husband has killed the wife has killed the husband, to a point that at ICPD 25, the president himself, there was money allocated for sexual and gender-based violence. And by 2026, tunafaa, it was the project of Uhuru that by 2026, tunafaa tukuwe tumemaliza FGM and sexual gender-based violence. As much as we are working on it step by step, we still have a long way to go. Because hiyo yote inaanza manyumbani mwetu, na inaletwa pia na the economic factor. Now sasa inakuwa triggered by not the political factor. So unapata kuna ile tension, kuna ule uoga, na maybe you see violence pia ni different depending na class. It's also a class issue, because utapata places like Mathare, Kibera, Dandora, uko ndiko prone ku happen. Even if it happens to places like Rundo or Karen, it is silent. haiongelewi. But you see, ukikuja upande wa Ruben Mukuru, huko iko abrupt, cause unapata the livelihood itself is even below $1, which later on lead to depression and anxiety, which even some people now use substances and they become extremely violent. Now imagine kuna mtu mtani anatumia dawa utu tutembe tudogo, nona tuwa kulevya, na umwende ukampea 200 aende aka heckle mtu mwingine. Na niambia umepea huyu mtu joto ya 200 na kona hizo dawa na kunywa zimeanza kuchemka. That person will turn to be very violent. Na anyone that atakuwa na cross yeye ni vita tu atakuwa naona. So kuna ile tension, but despite that we are looking forward to peaceful elections. I think we should also talk on things like prevention and responses to it.
All right. Well, that's Madam Grace. That is Madam Grace, a coordinator, and of course she's an expert in terms of in matters sexual violence in the country. Well, she'll be sharing with us a story of how she survived the issues, if she'll mind, if she doesn't mind sharing it with us. But now, getting back to you, Dr. Frida.
Yes.
Well, do you think that we should actually keep on talking about violence? Is it like every election here we have to talk about violence? Is this something that can be changed?
You see, violence is a social behavior. It's a human behavior. And yes, it has to keep being talked about. But for me, I would propose there be more actions than they're talking about. Because you realize, if, for example, it is said, if a child grew up in a home where there was domestic violence, they will most likely be violent as well. So it's not a subject that we can wish away. We have to continue talking about it so that we don't reach a point and stop talking about it, and then now it is taking toll on us. That is at the micro level, the household level. Nationally, in Kenya, violence seems to be cyclical. And I like actually classifying violence depending on how it is and how it looks like. There is what we call electoral violence. When you talk about peaceful elections like we are talking about today, we are talking about electoral violence. After elections, there will still be some form of violence here and there in the community, in the nation. Maybe you'll have inter-clan conflict, maybe you'll have cattle rustling, maybe you'll have cases of SGBV. So in wholesomeness, we will have to keep talking. Don't even forget there was the issue of, the other day we were seeing on the media that somebody beat a child in school, mpaka akakufa. So and that's a form of violence. So really the subject of violence cannot be brought to an end, because violence is a human behavior. And violence is simply an extreme form of aggression. And that's why you hear we are also being told there is physical violence, there is emotional violence, there is physical violence, there is financial violence. So because all these issues are with us, and there will always be difference in opinion which causes that kind of aggression, then really we have to continue talking about it. Most importantly is to act. And the way we act towards violence is 4 level. There is promotive, like what we are doing in Kirk TV today. We are doing is a promotive measure, whereby we sensitize, where we let people know that we are concerned about it as politicians, as advocates, as representatives, as government. When Uhuru Kenyatta he committed about 50 billion. 50 billion, that was very promotive. Then there is the actual work of preventive, where you have the rescue homes for women, although the rescue homes usually are for when it has happened, but there are preventive measures that some people even take children for karate lessons. That is preventive. How do we prevent it? And of course there is the curative. Curative is now it has happened. What do? We have the sexual offences bill, for example. We have the penal code, which says that if somebody is violent, take them to court. It's a civil case and the like. We have the constitutions, now that we are in the elections period, the constitution for the parties, and we have the Political Parties Act that says if you're violent in our party, we are going to do this with you and we are going to deny your ticket. And the Political Parties Act, they can take you to court with it. And then lastly, there is the curative. Somebody has undergone violence, there is bodily damage and the like. So all those 4 levels, we cannot wish them away, because there will always be a tendency for that aggression to be there. But as I finalize on my submission, is simply to say that violence is something that somebody wants to do. And Grace has given a very good example where it starts all the way from the politician who gave 100 bob. And by the politician, sometimes we don't give 100 for tunakwanga tunarudisha fare. Then hiyo fare inapia mtu arudi nayo nyumbani anapitia na hapo kiama iko na hapo.
Anapiga mbili.
Yes, ndio. So you find that it's a channel imetoka mbali na imekuja mpaka kwa nyumba. So there are two ways I like looking at it very objectively, because one thing, I'll be a very objective leader. Kuna mwenye cause the violence. This man who was there took beer, did this, got angry, got defeated, akapeleka hiyo aggression kwa nyumba. That person had intention. Wewe na wewe ulikutwa kwa nyumba, ukikutwa usirushe mdomo. If you can walk out, come back at 6 p.m.
Okay.
You know. So for me, I like even asking someone before we start thinking about nilichapwa. I usually ask that person, tell me, what was your role in that violence escalating? Because then maybe most people are surprised that I'm asking that. But yes, it happened. What was your role? Number one, possibly ulirudishia, ukamjamisha zaidi. Possibly you also tried to hit him.
Okay.
He took a spoon, he threw at you. So when we start with ourselves, it will be okay. Okay? So that now we are able to own the process. Everybody owns the process, and then we are able to spearhead the healing. Nationally, it is what is done when we have easy vikao za mashinani. Like there's a time we had the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. Na ilikuwa inatembea na across the country. Yeah. It was really just getting people to own their role in propagating violence and now in solving it. Because when you propagate it, the mzungu anasemanga, the wearer knows where it pinches the shoe. Yeah. So I think if we take that kind of an approach, it will be much better. And I think that's why 2022 hatuna shida kubwa sana, because everybody stood in their place. Yeah. And especially when it comes to the electoral violence and peace, I want to commend the political parties and the ORPP and the IEBC. Surely I think they've done their role. All other factors are not constant. When it comes to matters peace, they have really worked for it.
So watu tumebakisha hapo ni wanasiasa kidogo.
Yes, it is us. It is us. But we carry a lot of blame. I understand where Grace is coming from, but I can tell you sometimes, like politicians, we do these things out of blame.
It's okay. It's okay, doctor. It's defending herself. Well. Yeah, that's just a candid conversation we are having right here, and you can also keep on conversing with us via social media handles. That is Twitter at Kirk TV Kenya, at Kirk TV Kenya on Facebook, Kirk TV Kenya on Twitter, Instagram, and also at Munene Official. Use the hashtag that support Kirk TV to Jenge Kirk TV. Well, now we're going to have a video clip of some political intolerance that was experienced sometimes back during a campaign rally that was it was a UDA Kenya Kwanza's rally that was organized in Meru by Rigathi Gachagua. Yeah. Yes, it's a rally that experienced chaos, throwing of stones, and of course many youth were they were involved in the thing. So let's have a look at it, and then you tell me, you guys, how you see or you feel about electoral violence. The country counting less than 30 days towards the election, and all the voters expecting all the best from their leaders of choice in the forthcoming presidential debates and elections. The political heat ravaging the country can hardly go unnoticed. The heat being felt at the top seat in the land, which is the presidential position, which has seen 4 candidates being cleared by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, led by its team Wafula Chebukati. Among the candidates include the Deputy President William Ruto of Kenya Kwanza, Raila Odinga of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, David Mwaure of Agano Party, and the man making headlines for his unprecedented manifesto, Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya.
Constitution Tuna change hiyo, tutakuja kuuliza wananchi ni vipengele gani tunataka waondoe.
Stop telling us that we are angry. Of course, we are angry with what is going on in our country.
While every candidate is trying to ensure they become relevant towards the polls, political intolerance has characterized the presidential campaigns, cases of violence and hooliganism being the talk of the day in most of the campaigns. The recent act of hooliganism happened on Wednesday early this week when the Kenya Kwanza presidential running mate Rigathi Gachagwa's campaign team had it hard to address their supporters in some parts of Meru County when who are alleged to be a hired group of youths decided to disturb peace in the gathering. Whilst Rigathi Gachagua led the Kenya Kwanza campaign team in Meru, the Deputy President William Ruto was in Vihiga, selling his ideas to the people of Vihiga, but the scenario of the same kind happened here.
Wewe kijana, wacha kunijibu, unanijibu kama nani? Kama umeleta kisirani kwa hiyo mkutano utoke.
In all of the two incidences, one party or coalition putting a blame on their opponents, and when the law enforcers try to intervene, the situation gets even uglier. This comes when the Cabinet Secretary for Security and Internal Affairs, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, is urging politicians to cease using the youth to cause violence in political gatherings.
We urge all political players, all our brothers and sisters who are interested in elective offices to conduct themselves lawfully. They should not be tempted by anything to resort to either reviving or trying to create gangs to intimidate opponents.
With all that said, and all the situation in the country, not forgetting the Deputy President Ruto's lap saga, should we blame the politicians or should the politicians be kept on toes before time runs out? Such chaos and intolerance could lead this country to a ditched pre- and post-political period. Dennis Munene for Kirk TV.
Hatutaki uadui kati ya wale wanagombea viti ama wale wana supporters wao. Hatutaki ugomvi.
Well, from wewe kijana unaniongelesha kama nani to hatutaki uadui, Grace, how do you take that?
Hatutaki uadui.
From wewe kijana unaniongelesha kama nani to hatutaki uadui.
I find that contradicting. You say one thing and you don't even mean it, then you go and say another thing which you're not even sure if you mean it from the first thing that you said. Inamaanisha hauna msimamo. And my expectation was, because we're talking about a top leader in this country, kuna aggression fulani ukiwa leader hauwezi onyesha public. So hiyo aggression ya wewe kwa nini unanikasirisha, then to like hatutaki uadui, you are even a trigger to that person, because put in a situation where this person is above you. Now we find that most of our government kuna time they defy court orders. This is a person who's above you, akona finance kukuliko. Huyu mtu amekuambia wewe sitaki kisirani, hata kama ni wewe Dennis. What is the first reaction? Kuna ile uoga utapata. Then this same person being like hatutaki uadui. Utaniambia utaki uadui kama hiyo anga inatoka kwako kwanza. I wish the first statement ingekuwa ni hatutaki uadui. Then huyo mtu anajaribu kuleta vurugu, at least angeambia the people around, huyo mtu mwenye analeta vurugu ningeomba aambiwe hatutaki uadui ama vurugu yoyote. So nilipata ikiwa hayambatani. That's how I felt.
Okay, Daktari, before we go to Christopher. Those were youths, and actually si vijana peke yake, kuna hata wazee tumeona hapo wanarusha mawe na kuambia watu ati yao ni polisi. So does it mean now, okay, hata polisi wako kwa hiyo saga and whatever? I mean, how was it to you?
It's a very interesting scenario that we witnessed from principal of Kenya Kwanza, and I happen to be in that mrengo, so he's my principal. But sometimes I think leaders, we are judged harshly. We are judged with higher standards. When you're a leader, you forget that we are human. So for me, what I saw from His Excellency, the Deputy President and Principal for Kenya Kwanza, is a very natural reaction of a human being.
Well.
Possibly,
That's true.
Yes, possibly the issue would be now where he is and the forum and the like. But I also want to ask, when you're looking at Jibizana Nae, possibly it was a voter. And I also asked myself, there's a place of that principle. What is the place of the Mwananchi in that rally? Why did you go to that rally? If you came to that rally to listen to the Sarah, we wouldn't have seen that exchange. But if you went there with an intention, we usually say that karma doesn't miss an address. So you get back the dose. And you know, for the Deputy President to speak like that, possibly haikuishia, but don't forget, he has bodyguards, he has right hand men uko chini. So I want to believe that they took charge. But I also want to urge the Mwananchi, just like I urged the youth, the minute you're in that process, the minute you're in that position, take your rightful position. Usijipatie duty za kujibizana na president. Because I'm a deputy president, I'm a president. Because these are people who are way above you. But again, these are two human beings. We cannot demonize one than the other. But as a leader, I know I'm judged harshly. In fact, I remember when I joined politics, I was told, get a group of bloggers. Ndio hata kama ni social media isikwe wewe ndio unajibu. But you see, for me, what I desired is let these people understand that I'm a happy person, I'm a social person, but I get annoyed sometimes, I get unpleasant moments and those kind of things, so that they understand you holistically. So for me, actually, I wouldn't be so quick to demonize any one of them or to judge any one of them, but I would say that my principal must have really had it to another level. He just showed it. Yes. For the youth and throwing stones, for me again, I'm yet still to see or to be in a setup, and I've been supporting politicians before, and when they go for rallies, kuna violence, and it is associated with the candidate that I'm supporting. But I never saw I and my candidate sitting somewhere dishing money for the youth to go and propagate violence. But there would be violence, and some of our people would be found in it, and we would be held culpable. That we should have done something to prevent it, or what did we do to prevent it? So for me, what I would really say is that this issue of kurushiana mawe and aggression has just to be triggered within. Kenya is so sensitive that I just need to tell you, huyo candidate wako hata win. Huyo candidate wako akikuja, we make sure they don't talk. And then we do a small thing, then you wait for my candidate. So it becomes kind of a revenge kind of mission.
All right.
But the systems we have in place should be system where you're able to know that group of youth is rowdy. Sakanya wote, let them be accountable. Who is your leader? And let the leader be accountable.
Okay.
The way politicians are very quick to give money to instigate violence, they'll be very quick to prevent violence so that they don't lose their seat or they don't lose their position. Like what made us stay in check this time round, ni kuambiwa any violence associated with you, hatukupei kiti.
Oh.
No. That was really a need to keep us in check, and I'm sure that's why most of us didn't do things that propagate violence.
All right.
You also remember, for example, in my county in Embu, there was the issue of banning of ballot papers. During the UDA nominations. And it was something that came and it was covered up very quickly because it was going to be very costly for the UDA candidates and for the UDA as a party in Kenya. So it was sorted very quickly and issues were resolved and they did their primaries in peace. So I think if we take that direction where the checks are stringent, that at a politician and our but it is believed that politicians we can
ule candidate anawapatia pesa mingi. I'm talking kama mtu amezaliwa Mathare.
Yes.
Amelelewa huko, amesoma huko, na anaishi huko hata sai. So shida ya vijana wa Mathare hawananga candidate. Haiwezi kuambia mimi ni wa UDA, mimi ni wa Azimio, mimi ni wa huyu. Ama leo MP kwa mfano tuko na Billion, tuko na Mheshimiwa Luoch, kuna Madav, kuna ni wengi. Kwa mfano sema Billion kwa leo wako na rally. Hata tafuta wale vijana wake wa UDA. Ataenda kutafuta vijana general. Aniambia niaje Grace. Si mimi kesho niko na rally. Nataka vijana kama 300 hivi. Unaweza ni organizea. Unaona sasa unajua sasa Billion atakuja kwangu. Na vijana wanataka mheshimiwa alikuambia aje amekupatia ngapi sijui nini unaona? Hili unajua vijana wakiona kuna rally. Wanataka kwanza kusortiwa. That is the problem. Of vijana wa Mathare. Before wasort. You will not campaign ni Mathare.
Anakuuliza umetoa nini? Ametoa nini?
Kirisi ni aje Billion ametoa. Hata kama wakishajua Billion anakuja Mathare. Ako na rally ama ako na road show. Lazima vijana wakuja waniulize ni aje Billion ametoa ngapi. Usipotujenga ujue hata kama.
Sasa kutoka ni kumaanisha sasa hata watablock mabarabara huko.
Vijana ufanye Mathare wanaweka mikokoteni na wanapanda juu.
Wow, okay.
And you know the most interesting thing is that when they talk like that, like he was saying, Christopher, is not really about violence. Kuna kitu wanasema.
Kuna ile tu kuna kitu tu.
Hatuna unga, hatuna job, hatuna leta hiyo 100 nikakunywa nikabuy unga, we'll appreciate. Unaona? So really it's a very chaotic situation where like you said when you were beginning where we need to engage our leader in social contract. Such that tunajua kiongozi ukienda huko tunataka kazi mtaani. You know they are very I like the way he's talking because he's asking for what they want. He's not asking for much. Kazi mtaani. Kazi mtaani is a very good arrangement. Mheshimiwa bring it, iendelee. Tutakuwa sawa na wewe. And then we give them the first 100 days. So what have you done as far as kazi mtaani is concerned? So what for me I do with the youth I've encountered in Embu, because I've encountered violence, I've encountered even road barricading, and I want to give a very unique example. Mahali tukianza siasa, they blocked a road, but what they were simply saying is that particular place kulikuwa na accident mingi sana za watu wa boda. So every time, like before even bumps were elected in that stretch of the road, like we lost like 7 lives.
You're talking of Tenri, Matomari?
Yes, Matomari, that area. So you find that there is always something they are saying. It's not about violence. Don't come and round them up. Ask them what are they saying.
Is that thing that they want?
Yes.
Okay, right guys, we are going to run and we are going to have a very short quick break, a very short commercial break, and then we'll be back with Dr. Grace. Is not Dr.
Doctor, please.
Dr.
Dr. Keep the name.
It is coming.
Dr. Grace, come on.
Dr. Grace, come on.
It is coming.
Dr. Grace from Maru, for that matter, will be giving us her perspective on electoral violence. Of course, she has dealt with many cases about electoral violence. Keep it Kirk TV.
Health, mental, physical, and of course, spiritual.
Nitakuwa na biashara nawe tangu macheo hadi machweo.
As we put every matter into context,
together we build a lawful nation.
Remember, family is not only important, it's everything.
I support Kirk TV. Tujenge Kirk TV.
I'm Celestine Kemunto. I'm taking a bachelor's in business information technology. I chose Civic because, first of all, Civic has been ranked among the best in ICT, and I thought it will be best. It will be best for my course. First of all, we have there are so many ICT labs in Civic University, which enables students, mostly those who are pursuing IT courses, to get to know more about their courses, of which the labs have so many computers which have Ethernet, which is easier for them to browse. If I were given a chance to choose another university, I'll definitely choose Civic University.
Apply today. Civic University. Invent your future.
We protect what is important to you so you can focus on accomplishing your life goals. At Pima Insurance Agency, we cover motor vehicles, personal accidents, medical and educational policy insurance countrywide. Our offices are located at Franchise House, First Floor, Moi Avenue in Mombasa. You can link up with us on our social media pages at Pima Insurance Agency on Facebook and Instagram. For more information, call us on 0724 017 913 or 0734 691 090 or 0725 725 319. Your satisfaction, our joy.
It's exactly 40 minutes past 1 p.m. and we are just having candid conversation right here with my three pundits who are talking about the political piece and of course electoral violence that we are supposed, or maybe it's just purported it could happen. Grace, we had a conversation with you earlier on and we had this fear that huenda uchaguzi ukachafuka kidogo due to some factors that maybe si wengi wataona hiyo, pia daktari atatusaidia kuelewa hiyo kidogo. But Grace, I don't know why I'm fond of calling you daktari. Grace, tell me, you've had an experience with these people, these survivors of sexual violence that has resulted as a result of electoral violence. I mean, how is it? I just don't pose this question for you to put their lives here, but I just want you to tell me, how is it that you have been dealing with these people? What's the type of story they give? Because not many understand when we talk of electoral violence and of course sexual violence caused by election violence. Yes.
It is traumatizing. It is painful. I'm going to give you a scenario of what happened after 2007. Is that during that time, you will find that there are women who could not even come out to speak of it. Because to begin with, the society will always slap the woman. Like it was your fault, this happened. We are not looking at the elections that it was like a trigger or a motive for that person to go against another person. We just look at the survivor. We look at that victim like, if this did not happen, then we will have prevented this. It is stigmatizing, it is painful that some stories you cannot come out and talk about them. Lakini jambo linaloshtua ni ati we are in a system where we are not even ready to have a conversation of sexual violence. Another thing that people don't know is that sexual violence even occurs in marriages and even relationships. Now leave alone the elections, because even after election there'll still be sexual violence. But now this one will not be caused by the election themselves. Now let's put it in the bracket here, sexual violence. What do I mean? Like the society, there are people who don't understand that a no is a no. A no is not a maybe, a no is not a yes or no, it's just a no, where I don't consent to this. Yes. But there are people who are like, it doesn't matter, you are a woman, it's like I own your body, so there's nothing new and I can consent about. I can do whatever I want. And now this is in the context of where people are in a relationship. And let me give you an example. If I, Grace, I am in a relationship and I have been sexually violated by my partner, how am I going to go to the community or to the healthcare or to the gender desk and explain to them that I have been violated by my partner? For them, it's like, it's normal, that is your partner. You know, they say, kitanda kina siri mingi.
Watashughulikia hiyo.
They are like, hapana, huyo ni mtu wako. So how can that happen? Now imagine kwa situation mali hauwezi ongelelea kitu na haupati usaidizi.
Na mwenye amefanya hiyo is an anonymous person, because now if we refer back to elections now, it's...
Yeah, elections, it is anonymous. Even people you know. Because something I know, ni ati perpetrator, there are perpetrators who even turn out to be stalkers. Huyo mtu amekaa kikungojea. So anangoja on that particular day that atakupata uko vulnerable. Na unaona msimu huu wa siasa ndio huo wakati. Like where I come from, kuna kitu inatokea na ina happen where campaigns kwa informal settlement tunakuwa like one kijiji. Sisi wote tunajuana, najua nyumba ya mtu fulani, najua nyumba ya mtu fulani. So tukienda campaign tunatokanga kijiji yote tunaenda. So wale watu watabaki kwa kijiji ni very few. Kuna scenario where wengine tunachanga watoto ama wale wazee hawajiwezi. Perpetrator atatake hiyo chance ya si kijiji mzima kila mtu ameenda campaign, let me take advantage ya huyu mtu. Nani mkirudi kwa kijiji ndio mnasikia mtu fulani, mtoto fulani alidifailiwa ama mtu fulani alirepiwa, and you are like, when did even this happen? Now imagine kwa scenario ule mtu ametendekewa ni mtu anajulikana kijiji kizima. And we are in a society, as I told you earlier, it slap the victim, it slap the survivor. Haitaangalia the perpetrator, because tunaanza kusema kama hata yeye angekuja campaign na sisi hainge happen. Now you can imagine living in such an environment where unajaribu hadi kuseek help but hupati, because it's the same community that inakupiga. The stigma is so much to a point that at some point people even commit suicide because they cannot live to the light of looking at the same people that you expect usaidizi kwao. And this is where institutions like Wango Kanja Foundation, which is under the it has a bracket of survivors of sexual violence in Kenya network, where if such an incident has happened, and the first people wanakupokea the CHVs, the community health volunteers. Na kuna pia ile confidentiality, ile unajua tena kijiji mzima ikijua kuna ile stigma utapata. Like for us at Wango Kanja Foundation, that is SSVKE, if a survivor comes, kitu ya kwanza ni the medical. Lazima tujue venye atashughulikiwa kimatibabu. Lazima pia tujue venye atapata justice kwa kumpeleka police station, andikisha statement, and if kuna mali tunafika, we even provide pro bono lawyers. And also the most important thing is counseling, therapy. I'm talking as much as in happening physical, it touches you more mental than any other. Like to a point, like, you know, the moment mentally you break down, you even shut down as a person. So at Wango Kanja Foundation, we try our best, we do our best to provide counseling and therapy to these survivors. Yeah.
Well, that's it's actually traumatizing, because when you try and think of it, Daktari, you know, if a lady has been perpetrated by maybe a man in the campaigns, or maybe kumetokea kavurugu kidogo na jamaa akaona wacha nijishikie hii, unajua, it's something that's traumatizing. But you think that the government has a position in making sure that such things don't happen, and if they happen, is there a remedy? Because like Wango Kanja Foundation is just a foundation that was just brought up. I'm trying to think about it, what or how it could look like if we could not be having such foundations. Can the government come up with something?
The government has so far played its role of legislation or promoting laws and establishing institutions that look into that matter. Like when we talk about the National Gender and Equality Commission, that's why it should be capped. But when it comes to the issue of gender and sexual violence, the framework in the country is really not clear. Because when you're talking about gender, the only commission we have is the National Gender and Equality Commission. But if you look at their mandate, it does not encompass particularly the issue of sexual and gender-based violence at the community level. It is that commission that, for example, mainstreams that a workplace policy guards against sexual harassment, so that you don't have a boss harassing their junior on the basis of gender and who their junior is.
What about this? I'm talking about what about this anonymous person who perpetrated a lady?
Yes.
During a violence maybe that was experienced somewhere in Madare, somewhere in. Is there something that can be done?
Yes, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So then, other than the commissions, we have the law. This lady who was perpetrated by someone they don't know, and which is where now the CSOs come to bridge the gap, because they're the ones who are when you are mashinani, where the government machinery is not reaching. So actually what the CSOs are doing is bridging that gap. And what there is for that person who was perpetrated by someone they don't know is that there is the law, like the sexual offences law. They should be able to launch a case at the court. But of course now the question again you want to ask in Kenya is how effective are the court cases? What is the need of me taking a case to court and it takes years?
Yes.
Still these CSOs, they've come in very strongly to bridge the gap that government has created. Or for example, if somebody is raped, there is no time to wear a condom, is there? So somebody has is exposed to HIV and AIDS. So they provide the prophylaxis that they take for 28 days to prevent from. If you look at that arrangement, government comes in to a certain extent. Most of the, like I think government comes in 30%, 70% is breached by the CSO. So to come very specifically to your question, the first thing that should really be done thoroughly is sensitization. And I can say from where I sit, the CSOs are doing a very good job, because of our ground sensitizing women that protect yourself from it. But in case it happens, go to the nearest hospital, get prophylaxis. Go to the police, there is a gender desk. Although there is a whole debate why the gender desk should be at the police. So unaniambia nika report story ya gender violence kwa polisi aje. The police station is already intimidating as it is. But in case a woman does not really know, unajua mtu anaweza kurepu lakini useme huyo ni kijana wanani alinirepu. But in a case where really you don't know, take yourself through the protection of yourself against contracting diseases, and then a counselor comes in very handy to help you wean yourself out of the trauma. And then the best thing is just to let go, because life has to go on. This person, you don't know them, and then continue with the civic education. But I know it's a hard process, but the CSOs are really doing a good job.
Okay.
And Dennis, to top on what Daktari has said, there's something also the community is not aware. It is not only women who face sexual violence. We have men, and we have the number of men is rising, because you'll find that as women tend to report, men don't even speak it out because of the toxic masculinity in our society, that a man cannot come out and say that I was raped. In the eyes of the community, like, you are a man, how are you raped?
Unasema nini?
Unasema nini? And you know, this is stigma that we are imposing even towards our men, where you will find that this is where we are talking about mental health pia inakujia. This man is anaenda anakuwa depressed, anakuwa stigmatized. The next thing anachukua kamba anajinyonga, and the society will be like, by the way, kuna time alisemanga alirepiwangwa, then tukasikia mejimada.
Men are raped.
Yes.
I also don't seem to be aware.
Yes,
she's men not aware.
There's a lot to be done.
Yes, men are raped. Now, and even we are also finding that people who are watu wenye wanafaa kuwa kituchunga, they are also taking even advantage. I'll give you an example. I won't mention. In one of the informal settlements in Nairobi, a priest, father wa kanisa, went ahead and took advantage ya mtoto. And wakati every time the parent was like, what is happening? Akasema wacha peleke mtoto hospitali ajui nini ina happen, and the parent to find that the child has been defiled. Anamuuliza ni nani, ni now the fact that ni mtu fulani, then mzazi because haelewi, hako sensitized enough that hii kitu inaweza tendekea mtoto na hizi ndizo steps zinafaa zipelekwe. Alienda kwa police station next, akaambia mtoto wangu na hivi happen. Do you know what happens kwa police station? Ati enda utendo hivyo tena, ndivyo urudi tukue na evidence. Because we also have a case where even us ourselves kuna vitu tuelewi, like if such an incident happen, haufai kuoga, you don't have to change your clothes, venye tu uko ndivyo ukue na evidence enough. So this child was defiled, ameenda akaoga but bado akona pain, wakienda kuripoti because hakuna evidence enough, and then the same people unexpect kusaidia ndio wanakurudisha mali ulikuwa square one. It is so traumatizing, it is so painful. Now these are the same people that you cannot go against because huyu ni mtu ameheshimika kwa community. Yeah.
Alright, just sorry to cut you short. Sorry for cutting you short. But actually, what I want to take, just to take note on this is that we will all agree that all these revolves, most of the incidences normally happen when we have post-election issues like in 2007, 2008, 2013. But 2013 wasn't that rough. But in 2007 we actually really experienced that. Well, we know we actually have around 5 minutes to conclude this. It's so unfortunate that we only have that short time left out. But I want Bwana Christopher, before we call it a day, just tell us very briefly, what's the position of youth in this election yenye inakuja, uchaguzi ambao unakuja, wanarika wanasimama wapi? What's your position as youths?
Sisi kama youths tumeangalia yule kiongozi na ile manifesto ametupatia. Unajua kuna frontrunners, kuna the former prime minister and the deputy president. Tunaangalia manifesto ya kila mtu, ile inajali wanarika. So tukaamua ile manifesto inaongelea kuhusu youth, wametupatia kazi na yenye itatupatia kazi wakiingia. Hapo ndio tutapiga kura kama vijana wa Mathare. Nikisema Mathare nimemaanisha vijana wote. Ile manifesto inaongelea vijana. Hapo ndio tuko kama vijana.
Alright.
Sisi ndio wengi in this country.
Sawa.
Kuna mwenye sitaki kutaja alisema kwa kabineti yake atachagua minister kijana. So we are feel safe in that.
Mnafeel safe mkiwa hapo.
In that government.
Let me make a very quick comment. The issue of work is actually contained in the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And it is SDG. I don't know if it's a SDG what on decent work. And the SDG is something that guides, is something that Kenya subscribes to. So that should be, even the issue of peace we are talking about today is SDG 16 on peace and justice. So anything that we subscribe to as a country should not be anything we discuss without showing a repeat. In the next 5 seconds, I want to mention, if you remember Kibaki, His Excellency Kibaki, may he rest in peace, he talked about bringing 100,000 jobs per year. You ask yourself how Kibaki did it. He did not take our wanarika kawaajiri kwa ministries ama kwa serikali. He brought in the issue of the construction of the superhighway. That is employment. He's the president who I think established most universities from scratch. Those were employment opportunities. So when these people are talking about employment opportunities, including our MCAs, they should be looking at establishing structures that absorb the youth. We are talking about agriculture as an industry in Kenya being a mainstay, but it is on its knees. Revive cotton industries, revive pyrethrum industries, revive textile, grow the macadamia industry, go horticultural exports. That way, those systems absorb the youth. And for me, as I go into elective post as a Senate Embo candidate, I want to carry the issue of human rights very seriously, being a human rights advocate.
Yes.
Because I cannot take the people where I've not been. Yes.
All right. As we conclude this discussion, Madam Grace Kamau, I don't know, what's your what's your view on the position of women in these politics, in these elections that are just around the corner?
Cha kwamba ambacho ningepongeza is that for the first time we have women coming out and reclaiming the political position, but we still have an issue. Remember, to that gender, there was a time even Maraga was like dissolve the parliament, ndivyo to that iweze kuwa balanced. As much as we have women in these elective positions, pia lazima tuangalie ni dynamics gani like watamanage kuingia kwa hizo viti. Because even if we have women where most of them ni candidates, what about kupita? Watapata vile viti. Na tena pata vile viti, we are still going back to the drawing board story to that gender rule. So as much as pia women have this space of them wanting to be elected, they should also be considered in the nomination sector. Because ukiangalia you'll find that elections imekuja, party list imetumanwa, but still gender high balance in terms of position. Toko tunarudi square one. So I think it's high time that women be taken seriously, and we also want our women should be empowered. Isikuwe tu ile time siasa inakuja ndivyo women tunawekwa juu. Sasa tumewekwa juu sana. Everybody wants women on their side. Hadi kuna chata za wanawake. Then after August, will those chatters continue?
Well, Mr. Wambua, maneno ya mwisho labda tukimalizia hapo, kwa sababu tunajua kura ya kijana huwa inanunuliwa sana. Tukikafunga unasema namna gani?
Chenye naweza sema, kuna moto tuko nayo. Moto ya hii election. Sisi kama vijana, madhara, nikisema madhara nimesema the whole country. Ukipiga kura, piga kura na amani, enda nyumbani. Ukifika nyumbani, dumisha amani. Kura zikitangazwa, zitangazwe ukiwa nyumbani, ukiwa na amani. Kenya ni moja, kabila ni moja. Tusonge mbele.
Wow, that's amazing, Piga kura uende nyumbani, ukae kwa amani. Madam Daktari, Daktari, let me not even call you Madam, it's Daktari. Daktari Karani, Frida.
Yes.
What's your final words, towards peaceful elections, and pia pale maneno yako kwa wafuasi wako? Of course, I know you want to talk to them. Maneno ya mwisho, just briefly, just 30 seconds, and then we call it a day.
Thank you. I've been looking for that opportunity. Yes, today's theme in Kirk TV was very purposeful, peaceful election, and let that be a seed that we have in our heart, that just like Kijana has said, piga kura, go back home, leave the IEBC to do its work of calculating, or ama kuhesabu zile kura, you don't have to be there. To the women, I want to tell them all is not lost, but we need to be more resilient moving to 2027. The issue of the two-third gender rule that she has mentioned, I also want to say, government and the legislature and the executive are doing their own work. I also want to call upon the private sector to also take up that challenge and ensure that the two-third gender role is observed in their companies and in their sectors. And last but not least, I want to urge the Embo voter and the Embo people to vote me as their senator, because as their senator, I have their agenda at heart. I have a clean track record. Mimi sina scandals mingi. Now I won't have. That is my character. And my manifesto is out there. Read it and allow me to go and work for you. For me, I say, I'm not looking for a seat. I'm looking towards working for the people of Embu. So tell a friend to tell a friend that tarehe 9 ni Frida Karani. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I look forward to working with you past 9th August.
Thank you so much, Daktari. Well, Madam Grace, an expert in sexual survivors and sexual cases. What's your final words? Because, these elections will actually reflect to what you people normally do in helping these survivors. Just your final words.
My final words to the community and to the people of Kenya is that we don't want to go back to 207. We don't want to go back to the past. We don't want to open some wounds or create other wounds. So what will happen is that come 9th of August, let us accept the results how they will be. Because at the end of the day, I need my neighbor as much as he or she needs me. And these leaders come and go. It's just 5 years. 5 years is not a lot. Itakuja, itaisha, tutawaosha tena, tulete wengine. But wewe kama jirani yangu utakuwa hapo. Na usinidhulumu kijinsia kwa sababu elections ziko hapa. Ama umekuwa ukitaka kufanya kitu fulani, unatafuta an excuse ya hicho kitu kutenda. So as community, especially in the informal settlements, let's try to keep peace. Venye tu yamesema, piga kura, enda nyumbani, wacha IBC fanya kazi yake. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. That has been a 2-hour discussion with these three pundits here. One of them being a youth representative Mathare area. The other one is Daktari Frida Karani. He's a Senate candidate for Embu County. And the other one is none other but Grace Kamau, a coordinator of survivors of sexual violence. Remind me? Sexual violence?
Sexual violence in Kenya.
Sexual violence in Kenya network, all right, working hand in hand with the Wangu Kanja Foundation. Well, that was all for today. That is, this was a Civic Wednesday. It was a Wednesday whereby I had a plan for you just to educate you on some of the matters that you are just expecting to find while you go to vote. In the morning, we had a very, very candid discussion with some of the political pundits right here. And of course, we discussed matters to do with the debate that happened yesterday. And of course, you knew, and right now, I believe that up to now, you already know what is expected of you as a voter when you go to vote on the 9th of August. Peace, peace, peace. Piga kura.
Enda nyumbani.
All right, thank you so much. That has been a very nice but a very short discussion, right?
Yes.
I hope to do this some other time.
You'd come for a post-mortem evaluation.
After
yes. All right. That's Dennis Munene. But of course, I'll be leaving you with some other programs of this of Kirk TV. And remember this Kirk TV Partnership Week. Continue supporting Kirk TV. Continue partnering with Kirk TV. Communicate with us. Converse with us via our social media handles at Kirk TV Kenya on Facebook, Kirk TV Kenya on YouTube and Twitter. And remember, this discussion was live on Facebook and YouTube. Bye bye. See you next time.